Vic Fangio, give this guy credit
Let's
now.
go.
Let's give Vic, my man Vic, some credit. He took a defense that was bottom quartile of the league a season ago. And instead of like going crazy with this pass rush or trying to blitz or do whatever, they just slowly squeezed that pocket. And eventually somebody pushed their way through. And I was a little surprised that Patrick wasn't trying to get the ball out of his hands a little quicker. Like I thought the answer was, all right, even if it's a 3-yard completion, let's just get it out, right? Boom, let's get the ball out. Let's make sure. Let's get the ball in the hands of Kelsey. Let's get it in the hands of Pacheco. Let's just get it out, maybe break a tackle and take care of it. But there was no way that after the first half of the first quarter, you knew that that offensive line was not going to be able to protect him straight up against the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. And due credit to those guys, nobody else could either. I mean, there hasn't been anybody really that could have blocked him. The classic matchup would have been Detroit. Like, I would have loved to have seen that one, right? Let's see Detroit's offensive line going against Philly's defensive line. That could have been great. That could have been great. But it was at the weaker point of the Kansas City offense this year, which was their offensive line, especially at the end when they had to flip Tooney back out to the outside, that they got exposed against the strength of the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's what got them.
You know, Detroit-Philly might be the kickoff game next year for NBC. Would you love that?
That would be good by me. That really, at various points of the year, like I think you could have said Detroit was the best team in football for an extended period of time. I think you could have said that the Eagles obviously were the best team in football sort of at the end of the season.
Yeah.
But that really would have been the classic matchup in my mind, because you would have had two teams with the exact same mindset, that we are going to overwhelm you, that we're going to overpower you, we're going to beat you up in the trenches, we're going to just attack. And it would have just been one of those classic heavyweight fights that I think we would have been talking about for a long time.
We need that one, NBC, NFL.
That would be good.
Mike North.
That would be good.
Everybody, that's what I'd be campaigning for. There are NFL fans, I don't know if you know this, Chris, but that think that you really like Patrick Mahomes, and they're going to hear what you're saying about the O-line and say, you're giving him outs. You're giving him outs. You're saying he should have gotten rid of the ball faster. How much of this is on Patrick Mahomes?
Some. I mean, clearly some. It was, he was missing some throws as well that were, the classic don't throw back across your body, which we've seen him do 1,000 times, but that's what he did for the pick six. He did not have a good first half. He just didn't. And he not only had to be good, he had to be great, and probably couldn't even have been great enough for him to have won this game. And honestly, I don't care if anybody thinks that I like Patrick Mahomes, because I do. I do like the guy. He's been one of the most phenomenal players we've seen in the league for a long, long time. And I think everybody went into that Super Bowl with the same exact thought, which was essentially the Eagles have better players when you take their roster as a whole. And Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes. And ordinarily, it's a pretty safe bet, whether you're betting on baseball or football, who's got the ball in their hand, who's the starting pitchers, right? And even though Jalen's been great this year and has played really well, he hasn't been Patrick Mahomes. And so let's say, and so I thought it was sort of a toss-up. But you could tell from the beginning, not only was the Eagles roster better, it was a lot better. I mean, it wasn't even really close in that way. And the way that Vic Fangio was able to stick to his guns, he never had to come out of his game plan. He never did. Like, I thought, all right, what happens when Mahomes makes those couple of plays and it's a tight game and we're coming down to the fourth quarter and all sort of stuff? Never happened. It just never happened. And that was my take on the game most of the week, that I thought either the Eagles would win by 2 touchdowns or Mahomes would win it in a close one that came down to the fourth quarter, and it was over way before that. It just never close.
I'm looking at the PFF numbers. 28.2 PFF passing grade at halftime for Mahomes. Second highest pressure rate of his career. 53.3% per PFF. Were you surprised that the Chiefs didn't adjust? We're saying, like, Vic didn't have to come out of his game. I figured, I was like, all right, second half, establish the run, chip away. We're going to change something up. We're going to 28-3 this thing, and Brady's going to have to call it. Were you surprised they didn't?
I don't, it was almost like they were checkmated early on, because you know the guys that they drafted this year. This Quinyon Mitchell has just been a special player on the back end. Cooper DeJean may be the biggest steal that we've ever seen in the second round of a draft, and what he's done to shore up the slot position for that team. They were really not good a season ago in the slot. Cooper DeJean came back in there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I mean, just names that people wouldn't talk about. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's, now I like him a lot. He's a Florida guy. But he's out of his mind, right? CJ's the guy that when you have him on your defense is different than when he's not on that defense. Darius Slay bounces back. Zach, unbelievable what he's done this season. I mean, out of friggin' nowhere, this guy comes on and has been sensational. And the one guy that nobody talked about, I didn't hear the broadcast. I don't know what they talked about. I should shut up. But, you know, Nakobe Dean gets hurt, and Oren Burks comes in there. And in those playoff games, it was like they didn't miss a beat. Not at all. They didn't miss a beat at all. Nolan Smith runs a 4-4 something off the edge. Josh Sweat was great. But those 3 or 4 defensive interior linemen that they have, to me, from the beginning of the year, I did the same on camera every time we did an Eagles game.
Yeah.
The offensive line and the defensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles is what you have to beat. Nobody can beat them. Good luck, and the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't beat them either.
You did call 2 games with them, right? You did. I looked it up this morning. Week 12 when the Eagles beat the Rams. Then you did the divisional round, and I was just thinking about that. Everything you're saying is like, yeah, they're the better team, the more complete team. All of these things, like, why weren't we all over them all year, even going into this matchup? And it's because of what you're saying about Patrick Mahomes on the other side, but also because I think people had some questions about Jalen Hurts. I'm looking at PFF. Offseason, he's in the quarterback rankings. He actually finished the year graded out as the 24th highest, I will say, quarterback grade. Not great, okay, after what the regular season was. So what do I make of him? What should change now about how he's sort of viewed, graded out, what the perspective, the lens should be at Jalen Hurts at quarterback in this NFL?
Well, I mean, he's the one that says it better than I do. Just because we don't do something doesn't mean we can't do something. So if you've got Saquon Barkley and you've got these monsters playing in the offensive line in front of you, and you don't have to throw the football, why the heck would you? The much cleaner path is to run the football up and down the field the way that they did all